Hi everyone, and thank you for coming back into thecreditjungle.com. I'm George Anderson, and I wanted to have a little bit more discussion today about lease option agreements and kind of an unusual practical application here again that you don't run into too often, but again, since 1989 I've seen a lot of transactions, and this is something that I have actually seen a handful of times, and I just thought this would be a good place to talk about it. So when would you use a lease option agreement? When the buyer qualifies, the seller qualifies, everybody qualifies for their loan, and there's really no need to, try to put a seller financing instrument in place. Well, capital gains consideration is one of those times. So the IRS allows a person who has lived in a home as their primary residence for 2 years or longer to have an exemption from the money that they make from the sale of that house, from the appreciation on it. So a single person can exempt $250,000 worth of capital gains. A married couple can exempt up to $500,000 of capital gains. So I have run into this a handful of times where you have somebody who's selling a house and they've only lived in it as their primary residence for maybe 22 or 23 months, and by the time they close, it will have been less than 2 years that they're in there. So sometimes you just can extend out the contract, but sometimes people just want to move in. They want to move into the house that they're buying. The option buyer wants to get into the house that they want to buy. Well, the great thing about a lease option agreement is that it does not become a taxable event as far as the IRS code is considered. So this would be a good time where you've got the buyer who wants to buy your house, you found the house that you want to move into, and what you do is you take the buyer's option money as a valid source of funds towards the down payment on your home. You take the buyer's lease payments on their rental agreement as a valid source of income to be able to offset the mortgage payment, so it will help you get into the next house. But what you do is you make sure that in that option agreement that the buyer on the home that we're renting out here temporarily, that they can't exercise that option until you get past that 24-month mark. Now again, this is something you'd have to go ahead and corroborate this with your CPA, whoever does your taxes for you. But just having that little adjustment on there to make sure that the taxable event, that the sale date on that home, when that closes, that is past that 24-month mark. So somebody who has $50,000 to $100,000 of a gain in a house, which in the housing market that we're in right now, that's not unusual at all. There's a lot of people that have seen that much growth in the housing market. To be able to have that be tax-free versus being taxed at capital gains of 15% or higher, depending on the state that you're living in, I mean, that's pretty huge. And so to just delay things a couple of months to be able to preserve that tax-free exemption, there is another great use for a lease option agreement that helps the buyer, helps the seller, facilitates everything. And in this case, it actually preserves what could potentially be some income tax obligations on there. So thanks again for coming into thecreditjungle.com, and remember, push button, get mortgage professional. This is George Anderson. Talk to you soon.